All right, welcome to the Lockdown Podcast. We are here, a man down, but not for any bad reason. He went to a baseball game, so it is just me and the one they call Frederick doing the damn thing as we always do. So we're gonna break down Raw, break down SmackDown, dive into. I mean, we're 3 weeks away from Bad Blood, so I mean, we kind of have 4 to 5 matches kind of on the card at the moment. But obviously, we have 3 weeks, so either A, it's gonna be a really big build in creating more stories on the matches we already have, or we will get some more matches in the works. We'll see what's cooking in the cookbook of WWE. So let's just go over Raw first. So we've had this continued thing with the Wyatt Six and Chad Gable, and now Chad Gable and his Goon Squad, Diamond Mine. Now they are American made. Um, Continually basically having this whole back and forth. So we get a culmination into a street fight, and it is not a normal street fight because now we are adding in, Nikki Cross and Ivy Nile into the mix, which obviously they maintained, the woman and woman fighting versus some of the other situations we've had in WWE where a woman attacks a man, but then a man can't attack a woman and all that nonsense. So honestly, just a straight up, I mean, there was so much stuff around that ring, so many broke like chairs and tables and kendo sticks. Like it was an amazing match. And if you didn't see like the ring after when they kind of did this like overshot of the camera of the ring, and it was just like it was just a lot. And what a match, honestly. Like obviously Wyatt Six won. I mean, it's kind of hard is that like essentially Eric Rowan is the domination of the three that were in the match. Well, I guess four technically. Obviously Joe Gacy and Dexter Loomis obviously play their parts. But when you have the freaking whatever how many feet tall he is, you know, Eric Rowan is just a beast. He
Yeah.
literally like they threw tables and chairs on him, and like the guy just obviously on the perfect cue of time literally just blast out of all the tables and chairs and does what Eric Rowan does, and that is absolutely obliterate. So, like did you kind of catch some of the highlights of the match?
I caught like one highlight of obviously of Eric Rowan just being extremely dominant, just powering out of everything. He kicked out like one of the segments from the barriers around or the barricades around the
Mhm.
ring, and he used that as a weapon on American Made. I saw some of Nikki Cross just like using that Kindle stick to the best of her ability. Ivy now just taking the punishment. I didn't catch the finish of it, but all in all, it was a really great street fight. Yeah, well done to
Well,
both of
and
them.
a nice kickoff to the show too, because like that was the first match. Like I can only imagine the stage crew having to in between the segments into basically the next match, which was Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill versus Unholy Union. Obviously, kind of the rematch, essentially them getting. So like I chalk it up to WWE and all the crew that literally make everything look so smooth. It's so flawless and just like obviously if you're there at an event like we have like Raw's coming I think, on the 11th of November to Grand Rapids to Van Andel. Like if you see it live, you're like, dude, these guys they earn their money. I don't know how much they get paid, but like I think that'd just be honestly kind of a fun job. Like
I think it would be fun like the first time you do it. The second or third time you do it, you'd be like, absolutely not. This is the
like yeah.
logistics of setting up and tearing down a a WWE ring. Matter of fact, there's a video going around with Charles Robinson, one of the refs, who's the head
Yeah,
of that whole like
the
part
whole
of the
setup.
production. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
I mean,
yeah, but just yeah,
yeah, I
so much
mean,
to do, so many parts, and if you miss a part, goodness gracious.
well, and did you see that they are going to possibly cut down or even eliminate just live, like like a live show like on a Sunday or any other day of the week when they kind of have them come in, but they really don't. There's not production value to them. There's not really much storyline stuff to them, and it would seems to be like I think it would make sense to kind of eliminate those, not in the sense of like I don't get to see, them come to town or whatever, like, when they do certain like, I don't know, like I don't know what you call it, but like
Right,
they just have like a like a Sunday showdown or whatever else, and like,
right.
but it's like though none of those matches are losing titles. Like they're essentially like live shows are basically like dark matches.
Yeah,
No
yep.
one sees them. They have a match. It's a pretty definitive, winner based on who's in it and how their storyline is playing currently.
Right.
Um,
I I I like the idea of giving performers time off throughout the week to recover, to prepare, to live to live a balanced family life or personal life. Um, gives them time to work on their craft. I don't like the idea of eliminating all of WWE live events like on weekends and stuff because for some markets and some areas, that may be the only way that they get to see their WWE
well,
superstars
and
when they
I
come,
mean,
so to get
maybe
rid of
run.
that, I
I
think
mean,
is
maybe
pretty
run
bad.
with a more limited roster, kind of like main event. Something like that if because I get it, you wanna see your performers and stuff like that, but, like, I think for longevity of wrestlers and like you said, kind of getting a little bit of reprieve from week to week, you know, I feel like, you can get, more healthy wrestlers, less mistakes, less injuries,
I
and obviously, even on the live shows they do, I mean, it's a pretty, like, hour and a half, maybe 2-hour show. Because I've been to a couple here that I've come to Grand Rapids and stuff and gone, like, a Sunday or something, and,
Mhm.
like, they're not bad. It's just, like it's kind of like you said, it's kind of like the markets that don't get touched with Raw or SmackDown or PLEs, and I think to that point, I think, honestly, like, maybe a limited amount of live shows versus, them working 5 to 6 days a week,
yeah, yeah.
because people have gotten hurt at live shows,
Oh, yeah.
and so,
Totally.
so I
And
think I think with a limited amount of live shows, like, maybe, like, let's say SmackDown, has the big show, and then it has, like, a smaller, off television, and maybe they have one, Raw has one, and
yeah,
maybe just do it like that versus, you
I
know
want to see it would be I think it would my opinion is don't kill off the live shows tours, but definitely scale them back for the health and longevity of performers. Uh, don't don't make them like this this really expensive means to see your favorite WWE superstars, but definitely um rotate it. Like
Yeah,
you don't
I
have to
mean,
have an event every
it
weekend, but you can
well,
definitely
yeah,
do like a
because
couple of times a month, or you can have a
yeah,
schedule that meshes well with the new way that WWE is doing business and still keep it entertaining, still keep it energetic, still keep, fans, spending their money with WWE, but to eliminate all of them, I think would not be in the best long-term interest. I mean, it would be a cost savings, but then WWE superstars would want to be like, "Hey, man, I'm only scheduled for Raw, once a month because of my story. I want to go out and I still want to wrestle because I still want to perform, you know."
Maybe that keeps them sharp.
Yeah, and it does. I mean, because a lot of those live weekend shows, they're working on what they're going to show on a Monday or on a Friday or something like that. They're
Right.
still working through that. So to eliminate them all, I think might not be the actual story, but definitely cutting back on them. Yeah,
Yeah.
they don't need to be on the road. And I would even dare to say there needs to be a season. We need to have seasons in WWE.
Right.
Um, and those seasons could look something like um, television seasons, plain and
Right.
simple. Like September, we're kicking off the new season of WWE or whatever have you. So
Yeah. I mean,
I think they'll
it's
figure it out with the new business model with TKO. I think they'll figure it out.
yeah. I mean, and well, the thing is too is I mean, it's the longest weekly episodic show ever, and so like it's I'm sure it wears on some of them, but also like a lot of times their matches are not isn't is crazy and theatrical as a live show where you're on TV, so you're entertaining the TV and the audience that's at the event. But so we'll just put a pin in that, and if we hear more, we'll definitely keep you in the loop. So now being that Raw was in Canada. So obviously you're gonna get, Bret Hart comes out. Obviously, the best there is, the best there was, or best there ever will be. Excellence of execution. Literally, I mean, not even about titles, but just the absolute presence of mind in the ring. Easily Mount Rushmore greatness in the business in its entirety. Not even like because I feel like it's not even about championships sometimes, because you have a lot of wrestlers that don't really put up the titles, but they are, because obviously back in the day there wasn't really as much titles floating around. They were wrestling all the time. Like, so if these guys can do it, I guess you guys should be able to do it, right?
Right,
And
right.
and they were doing it at a later age. So like,
Yeah,
I think honestly people don't understand is that a lot of these people that we have, your Ric Flairs, your Bret Hart, you know, all of these guys, Undertaker, Kane, like these guys started doing it when they were older. Like they were in their 30s starting it. Now these guys are literally you got Nikki Hale in NXT who's literally 19. So like
yeah.
it is a different time, and so I chalk it up to the fact that they can still come out and do things. You know what? I absolutely respect the crap out of Bret Hart and what he's done for the business. Obviously, per the cookbook and the segment of with Gunther, obviously, basically talking smack, which
Yeah, yep.
you know, I honestly I like Gunther. I think he's a no bullshitter. He says what he means and he means what he
Yep,
says.
yep.
And he does respect the ring. Like, yes, it's wrestling, but he respects the industry, and that's not a character thing. That's not something wrote up. He's been doing it for a long time,
Yeah,
and he's always preached respecting this great sport, as he puts it. So, you know, I think honestly it was a good segment. I think, obviously Sami Zayn came out to basically kind of, rattle off more stuff.
right.
Um, we don't have a confirmed match, for Gunther and Sammy, but obviously I feel like
It's
it's in the
coming.
works.
Yep,
I don't
they'll
think it's
announce
gonna
it.
be. I think maybe that might be the added match. I think that will be added
Yeah,
to Bad Blood. Um, just because, like I said, we have probably about 4 or 5 confirmed. So I usually, we'll
right.
see.
Yeah.
But So back to more stupid Judgment Day nonsense. Dominic beats Dragon Lee. Yeah, with the help of the whole freaking team. You know, and we were talking about this beforehand, but it's just like I think it's absolutely nonsense. You talk about your dominance, but you guys have the numbers game, right? And you
Yeah.
want to talk about Liv Morgan being this great champion who literally is a track star at running away from Rhea Ripley. I'm sorry. That makes you look weak. If you like, I would rather see you in most champions that that do this. Your Seth Rollins, your Drew McIntyres. They will. You know what? They will try to fight people off, and if they get beat down, they get beat down.
You know what? It's a classic. I think it's a classic trope. Dominance in the numbers, and promoting that heel bully like
Yeah, I just
you
it's
know that it. Yeah, I get it.
it's so drawn out.
Yep, it's drawn out. It's really overused. You really want to see, or I'm guessing some people want to see a faction have incredibly strong members, and when they're together they're like completely unstoppable, right? So it would be something different if it was like Dominic beat Dragon Lee cleanly, and just members of Judgment Day were just like not even worried, not even phased if the match wasn't going a certain way. I want to say like maybe back in the late 80s, early 90s, maybe that was tried out, and the psychology just wasn't there. People were just thinking like, it,
Well,
it doesn't belong,
everything
you
stems
know
from the Four Horsemen.
yeah,
You know,
definitely. Yeah.
so that like and that's the thing too is like if I had a chance to watch the it's a special called Evil on I think it's on Peacock, part of WWE stuff.
Yeah.
And it just talked about that, essentially Ric Flair basically he set the bar because now you see other people in every industry, every sport, everything, they come out looking fly, right? And that's all because of Ric Flair. And that's crazy to think that that guy's impact in the lifestyle, the limousine riding,
Mhm.
kiss stealing, wheeling
Mhm.
dealing, son of a gun. Like he legitimately made the industry what it is today, and why they come to events dressed to the nine because they want that Ric Flair. They want because you even see like people from other sports, even young, even the Gen Z kids. Like you start seeing him do the Ric Flair stuff, the strut, and everything else. Like he had, I would say, easily the biggest impact in wrestling in general at all.
Right.
You know, and then so it's like, and then when they, he did, they had the Four Horsemen, like that was a foreign concept, a four group faction. Factions weren't a thing back then, and that's what people fail to realize is that like there wasn't all these great factions back in the day. There might have been a tag team, but tag teams don't count as a faction. They're just a
Right.
tag team.
Yeah,
So the
just
Four
a couple of
Horsemen,
people. Yep.
and again, Ric Flair, Arn Anderson, I forget the rest of them, but you
Tully
know,
Blanchard, JJ Dillon, you've got, there was Lex Luger and Sting at one point. There was I want to say even
well, I'm just
no,
talking
Barry
I'm
Windham. Yep, Barry Windham was a horseman at one time.
yeah, yeah,
there's
I'm
so
I'm
many
just talking about the
incarnations.
the the OG original.
Yeah, so
You
that would have
know,
been
Arn
Arn
Anderson,
Ole.
Tess Blanchard, and somebody
Yep,
else.
Arn Anderson, Ole Anderson, JJ Dillon, and Ric Flair
Yeah, yeah,
believe made up
yeah.
the original. And then at some particular
And
point it
that's
became
the
Tully Blanchard.
crazy thing is
Yeah.
that you have things that I mean, you're even going back into the 70s and 80s. This is way before our lifetime. And like the impact and how that after let's call it 40 years have completely like they're just selling the mold of the 70s. They're just doing it at a higher level now because now we have streaming, we have social media, and and now those concepts and those ideas are now basically happening in real time and how great they are, but they started with an idea,
Hmm.
you know, and WWE has grown off of the ideals of the originals. So the theatrics of the Ultimate Warrior, the face paint of Sting, like dominance of Goldberg, the absolute craziness of Undertaker and Kane. Like
Hmm.
we are all essentially the wrestling is carbon copies, just
Yeah,
done better.
yeah, and
And that speaks to the credibility of the people that started this business and literally laid the
but at
foundation
what
for what
but
is
at
now.
what point do we start to move away from those tropes and those ideals? History is always repeating itself. It's
Right.
just told in different ways. But there's got to be a paradigm shift in how we tell those stories. We can't keep continuing to have
I mean,
rehashing of those same stories and still keeping professional wrestling as interesting and as entertainment. You can throw as much theatrics and lights and sounds at something, but if you've read the story, you're reading it again, it's gonna you kind of know how
I
it goes.
yeah, I mean, I think Triple H it's a slow burn to different. Obviously because creative has been definitely more aimed at, maybe fans saying things
Hmm.
or the wrestlers having ideas. And Triple H is obviously way more open than, Vinnie
Right.
Mac ever
Oh yeah,
was.
yeah,
And
totally,
so, like, I
100%.
think I mean, the more they change, the more they stay the same,
Right.
but
Yep.
like with a twist, though,
Yeah.
because I feel like we're starting to get more female factions that are dominant, that all have different skill sets,
Yep.
and so like we're slowly adding recipes to the cookbook, and that is the Triple H Paul Levesque era way. And obviously, we've honestly already gotten rid of Hell in a Cell pay per view. Now we're bringing back Bad Blood. I absolutely love that NXT basically takes a lot of the, well, let's call them recycled PLEs, and kind of revamping them with an NXT twist.
Yeah,
And
having
now
them
the
on
and
TV, I think is really good for the brand and really good for these next generation WWE superstars, and still gives like older generations and long term watchers of the product something that they can remember. With the In Your House or Great American Bash or Halloween Havoc. Yeah, there's going to be. I know that we're going to continue to reuse, rehab, rehash, recycle some of these old tropes, but there we've got to start thinking a bit differently, especially with these
um,
factions. Like, what if we had a faction that you know was they claim dominance, but week after week they're on the wrong sides of
right.
beatdowns. You know what I'm saying? But yet still hold all the gold, still,
I mean,
you know,
that's pretty much kind of how things are now.
no,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
literally it's like we're a faction, but we can't win a match except for when our titles are on the line, we pull out a win
right.
somehow.
I
You
mean, that's
know,
kind of like Judgment Day, honestly. I mean, like Dominic continues to get beat up on Finn's, getting beat up. Like, so I think we're slowly burning towards that idea and
yeah.
concept. And I think, like I said, this is this is the Paul Levesque era, and I feel like we're slowly we're just getting little snippets, and I they're just these little little spots, little things that you start, if you watch it enough, you kind of like start seeing some different flow of things.
Mhm.
Women's matches are getting maybe a little bit more time than normal. They're obviously still not pushing a 15-20 minute match like the men, and that's not sexist. That's just kind of how it is right now.
I
You know,
literally, outside of Bianca Belair or Natalia, which by the way, they should put Natalia on TV a lot more. There is not anyone that could carry a 15-20 minute match that is currently
oh,
on the
hand over
roster.
fist.
But that's not, and it's because they're hurt. Oscar could,
Oh, I mean, Charlotte
Charlotte
Flair.
could. Yep, Charlotte,
I mean,
Oscar,
I don't think there's much of the roster that
Becky.
that doesn't have the potential to do it.
Right,
You
but it
know, but
wouldn't.
they're just not giving him that right now, and
Right.
like
Yeah.
I think that's going to start to change. I really wish they would bring back that Evolution All Women's pay per view. I feel like that, maybe once a year they do that. I feel like that would, give them more time to shine, maybe give them some solid 20, 25-minute matches,
Right.
show off a little more of the skill set and kind of give them their own PLE
That
to
would
just,
definitely that would definitely have to be something that is planned and orchestrated and celebrated, because it just can't we just can't announce it. You know what I'm saying?
right.
If we were to just talk about that just for a hot moment, um obviously the very first one was not, it was respected, but it wasn't well received, and we understand why it wasn't well received. Um, so if we were to do it again, it would have to be like a celebration, and there would have to be some time involved and
Well, I
invested in
mean,
it.
they could have built it into like September because we have no PLEs in September. And I mean, obviously it's build, we have build to, Bad Blood, but like I feel like, coming out of Bash in Berlin, they could have had it, maybe a week or two after that, kind of in the middle of September, kind of like if it was like this past Saturday or something, like,
Mhm.
but like you said, it's a lot of planning. It's a lot of, because you're gonna have, I don't even know how to put it, but like, you'd have to have these builds that were basically a match. What match was building to Revolution versus building up to the next PLE,
Right.
and maybe the next PLE is the fallout of that.
You know,
Maybe they have a couple matches that are fallout from that.
they
But
they do have enough people, performers, that they could build to something like that. That they could work to something like that, and really celebrate that, and really, and really make it mean something. Put all the women's championships on the line. Build up to these matches and let it be, a woman's WrestleMania.
right,
I think that would be outstanding, because the women don't get enough opportunities to shine, and we don't have enough polished, or we don't have enough women who are given the opportunity to show how good they are, that they are limited. And like you were just saying, this new era, I think that's going to change, and women will step up because they are just as good and just as talented.
right.
They're just not getting the same TV time because these
No,
other stories are being
yeah. I mean,
marketed,
we are
and it's there's a lot of things at play versus women aren't as good as men in professional wrestling. That's BS. That's not true. It is
right.
more so
It's
of who's watching the product and what are they catering to.
right, and well, and that's the thing too is that it's not for lack of effort because they have to put everything on the line every match they get. And it's just kind of how WWE's been for, 3, 4, 5 decades. It's just, really we've only really been in this, you know, essentially getting away from the Divas Championship because we went from Women's Championship and then we degraded them down to the Divas Championship. And then they finally brought back the Women's Raw, Women's SmackDown. And now we essentially kind of have, I like the new titles now because then we don't have to worry about which brand they go to. So you don't have the universal, you don't have, the undisputed, like, so like now we have titles that can go anywhere. They can get separated to a different show, they can get drafted somewhere else. Like, I love that, and like I get it. The Raw SmackDown titles were a good thing for a while, but I feel like when Triple H took over, we had to have no more swap titles crap. None of that. We just want the titles to go where they go. I really feel like next year in the draft, there's going to be a lot of championships getting moved around. I think because now that we're in that era where there's not a specific branded Raw or SmackDown title, I think in the coming, years, we're going to get a lot of shuffling of championships because they
Yeah.
basically said that the champions were basically off of the draft list. But I feel like that would be kind of redundant. They'd be like, okay, all of a sudden Cody goes to Raw, and then Gunther
Yeah,
goes to, you know what I'm saying? Like,
you know,
I feel like they
I
need to be in the draft though.
I think I like having champions exempt from drafting because it gives the allure of a champion is representing this brand. The championship is representing this brand
Yeah,
as opposed to the person holding it.
right.
Um, so you don't necessarily, yeah, I like that concept. Um, because what happens when you just said like, oh, if Damian Priest was world champion or well, Gunther's world heavyweight champion, and then you've got Cody Rhodes, um, but the network wants Cody Rhodes at on
I
their
mean,
program, and he's holding
yeah.
a championship, and
Cody
it's like,
Rhodes is he's a
yeah.
Raw champion on SmackDown. Like, we'll kind of roll by this and kind of finish out Raw, but like, Cody is not a Raw, he's not a SmackDown world champion. He is like, because currently it seems to be, honestly, like, I would say the shows are very balanced in a sense of storylines,
Mhm.
and just the power of it. But it's like, realistically, we've had a bracelet and a the Tumafula, whatever it is, like, be more important than the titles, and that's some great storyline. Like, you can love that or hate that, but honestly, the fact that a bracelet and a necklace were more important than the championships just speaks volumes to how much power they weld. Because Drew is an absolute beast. That whole, like, the him and CM Punk thing, I freaking love it. But I'm glad. So to basically kind of go back down more Raw stuff, so now we basically have the rubber match with McIntyre and CM Punk in Hell in a
Right.
Cell at Bad Blood. Thank God.
Yeah.
Like, like, okay, well, so we'll give me like 30 seconds of it. Who wins? In no bias, who wins?
Punk. I don't see I don't see Punk not winning, and it's more so to position him into being a credible threat to a champion, right? They already started teasing Wade Baird and Drew McIntyre um, as being Drew's next thing,
Yeah.
and getting Drew and getting you know Wade Barrett back into the ring because he's cleared to go, and they saw that Nigel McGuinness, from another broadcaster who was a wrestler but had to sit out because he wasn't getting opportunities, blah blah blah. He's not a needle mover, but you know
Well, and I think,
Wade Barrett can,
mhm.
is going to be the next. So CM Punk takes the feud. Drew McIntyre and Wade Barrett, going to a feud.
Mhm.
CM Punk moves on to probably challenging Gunther. The sooner that we can get CM Punk his WrestleMania main event, the sooner he can be
Yeah.
off
Well, and
television.
I think, honestly, I know Tim will be happy to hear us both say CM Punk, but like, like I think CM Punk can't take a loss. Drew can. Drew
Yeah.
can take a loss and make him more vengeful, and he can start a different feud and still be pissed off. CM Punk can't take a loss right now. If they want to push him to the echelon that they want to push him, he
Mhm.
cannot take a
Yeah.
loss.
Yeah.
So I mean, not really a whole lot. So now we have Jey Uso basically is the new number one contender for the IC title. Obviously, much like, you know, I will say that it was kind of a push to have Jey Uso, but they also played it well with Braun basically talking to every person in that match individually throughout the night. So it didn't seem there was a bias. Obviously, we kind of, figured, Jay's gonna finally get something. Rikishi's pissed. Rikishi's literally just been very vocal about the lackluster use of giving Jay, a singles title.
Rikishi has so much history and so much insight into what's going on. So, yeah, I mean, father wants to see his son succeed in so many areas. And when you see, your child not getting the same looks as other people are getting, you're going to have an
It's
opinion about that. But
well, it
and
it
you and I have discussed it, and on the podcast we've discussed it. I view Jay Uso with or without a champion as main event. That's his thing. That the show starts when he shows up. You're like, put the strap on him. Validate his moniker of main event, and I think that how it goes is that he's not going to get it. And this is what will bring him back into Roman Reigns and that bloodline.
I mean,
Because,
I
yeah,
don't
I
see
think,
Jay.
yeah.
I don't see Jay bouncing ship. I really don't. I mean, because it's going to be it'd be an interesting build because they're on separate brands, right? And
Mhm.
there's been talk of them swapping over or whatever. But like, the Roman group for Survivor Series War Game is going to have to be, other than Jimmy, and I'd say Jimmy and Jacob, and maybe one more. We'll say a 4-on-4, right?
Right.
And but I don't see Jay breaking out of the other brand to help out Roman. It's all in the past. He's running his own path. And and the thing I was just thinking about in my head right now without speaking it out
Mhm.
loud, but like I think the fact that you see a lot of these newer talents come in, and like your Braun Breaker, your LA Knight, they come in, and because they're already single competitors. And so the fact that he was a tag team for so long, it hinders a little bit his progression to being a singles competitor.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with Montez Ford, right?
Right.
You
Yeah.
you have a great athlete, and nothing against Angelo Dawkins, nothing against him. It's Montez is he could be a great singles competitor, but I don't see him breaking out. Maybe
I don't see Montez breaking out right now, but I did watch a video a couple of months ago about how to get Montez into a singles run. And basically, the person who created the video, I can't remember it, but it's basically the premise is this isn't personal, this is business. I want to be a singles.
right,
I want to have a singles run. You want to be a singles run. Let's just go. Let's just go do
yeah,
it. And it's kind of like almost turning heel, but not really.
right.
That,
I
that
mean, the same thing has happened, because there's a couple different people in NXT, like Brooks Jensen and um,
yeah, the other one.
the other one.
Yeah.
They kind of divided, but it was kind of a clean break. There
Mhm.
was nothing really to it. There was no malice, and I
Right.
think that it's possible to break up a tag team without ruining the story that they've had in the
Mm-hmm.
matches and the cohesion and everything else. And
Yep.
so there's ways to have a clean break, without as much story build to it. You
Yeah.
know, it doesn't need to happen like Jey Uso did, where that whole bloodline stuff was just, a whole lot of story build for basically essentially Sammy basically kind of dipping, obviously, and Jay and him having a good relationship. Obviously, he kind of dips, and so like, it doesn't need to be that drawn out. It could be like you said, it's something simple as, hey, I want to go to singles, you go do your thing. Maybe Dawkins goes down to NXT and succeeds.
Maybe it doesn't even have
Because
to be that. Maybe just Dawkins just is like, you know what? I want to be US champion or I want to be intercontinental
right,
champion. And no matter what, I'm going to do that. But if my boy needs help, I'm going to support him,
right, exactly. It's
you
like
know,
like I said, a clean break.
yeah. It's not
Um,
even, yeah, yeah,
it's I mean, it's there's plenty of scenarios that plays out with. I mean, you have, I mean, even like, as far as back as like Shawn Michaels when his tag, there's ways to have a clean break without having any extreme measures happen. So,
right. There
but
is definitely.
so we'll roll over to SmackDown. So, um, the thing about the undisputed, Cody match with Solo is the fact that they're on the broadcast literally talking about Cody's next match and paying little to no validation for the actual match he's having. Like,
That seems
that is
odd.
bad commentating. That is not good for business. You cannot sit there and basically already insinuate that Solo's going to lose and that someone else is ready down the line. That's not good business. That's not good commentating. You
Hmm.
can't just like act like, oh, well, Solo's just a rollover, so blah blah blah. Like, I didn't think that was very good, commentating from the table, already basically talking about the next match. I didn't like that. Obviously Cody does win, with, obviously the bloodline still getting their way. So this didn't even need a cage match. They could have just minded their own damn business and been in back and just had a good one-on-one match, and then you can come on after the fact and then do what you guys do. But obviously, so it turns into basically Roman coming out and essentially, I wouldn't call it helping Cody. I feel like it was an opportunity, and obviously because it's the
Yeah.
kickoff, so you're going to see Roman Reigns.
Yep. Yep. It
So
was,
like,
yep.
so I mean, but it was a very, very good segment. All of a sudden, you got Jacob Fatu on the top of the cage, about to do a frog splash, or in his case, a
Which would
rhino
have
splash. But
would have
like,
been
you know,
awful for Cody.
and
Awful.
so yeah, and so like obviously perfect segment, obviously, and so that leads into what happened at the end of the show, which obviously most people already know. We have Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns basically, facing the bloodline at Bad Blood. Now, if you didn't watch it, and there's a absolute great photo of Cody basically pulling a Roman Reigns. Roman is holding the title, and Cody goes. He just asked him like this, like how Roman asked for the mic, like just kind of just like. And so, you know, there's, and I've said this before, is that I've talked to multiple people about this, is that Cody, actually I think I posted on X about this, but like Cody and Roman is a friend of my enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Yeah.
That's all
Yep.
this match is.
I would
They're
agree.
not gonna they're not gonna go off into the sunset singing Kumbaya.
Nope.
This is merely a basically balancing of the numbers game, we'll call it. And obviously Roman and Cody are gonna beat him. I have a
You know,
2%. I think there's a 2% chance, maybe 10%, that Solo and Jacob Fatu win.
I
Because
I think there is a high probability that Jacob and Solo win. And the reason being is that it still keeps a level of animosity between Roman and Cody. It still gives conflict between Roman and Solo's bloodline, and it leads us up to a potential one-on-one match with Roman and Jacob, which we need. We need that.
Well, I
And I would
mean,
not be surprised if Roman doesn't win that match.
so let's put a small wager. See if Cody and Roman win, you have to get like some Jamaican dreads and look like Jacob Fatu.
Do you see the top of my head? That's not gonna work.
They did exactly. That's called you get one of those Jamaican Rastafarian wigs.
Absolutely not.
Then you can go.
Oh gosh, no. How about I
don't
just
know.
I would just do this, like,
There you go.
instead of the piece, like yeah.
Look like you're literally trying to take a dump. You're like,
Oh god.
oh man. Yeah, but
Yeah.
anyways, so and then now back to pointless matches
Yeah.
that WWE has had. Michin defeats Piper Niven. Big
Which,
flying whoop.
you know what? That's cool. I like it.
I like
Because
Michin.
I like Michin. I do like Michin. I also like Piper Niven. And if they're going to push Michin for Nia Jax, yeah, it works.
I don't see Nia Jax losing anytime soon.
You know what?
The only way that title goes away from her is if Tiffany Stratton cashes in.
Yeah, I
And
think that's
obviously
the
she's
sellout.
gonna rock
The
that little fucking
sell.
pink bag for
Yeah.
till the cows come home.
You
So
know
we're
what?
not gonna see that.
Yeah.
That's not gonna be. I'd say maybe Survivor Series, maybe.
Yeah, maybe Survivor Series
So I
at the
mean,
soonest.
yeah,
Yeah.
maybe Royal Rumble, maybe.
Yeah.
But that
Yep.
is a whole different conversation for a different
Yeah.
story for a different
Yep.
time.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
It's
All of
always
you
Tiffy
kids.
time, but
Yep. It's always Tiffy time for you kids. Yep.
So okay, so so now we have Kevin Owens basically getting a match versus A-Town Down Under, which I feel like they're the best at taking L's.
Yeah. Well, play your part.
Because they're like, so I mean, obviously, like Randy Orton comes out, whatever. We all kind of knew that was coming, but like now the fact that Waller and Austin Theory continue to have these moments of like, why did that happen? Or you pushed me out of the way, or I took it, and so like there's this back and forth uncertainty with these two where it's like,
Yeah.
who's gonna essentially screw over who. And like
Yeah. You
I'm
know
ready
what?
for it. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
we haven't mixed, the eggs and flour with this whole recipe yet, but like, we have the ingredients though, right?
Yeah.
Like
It could
we're gonna
be a
start using
good.
recipe metaphors.
Yeah, it could be a very good mid card, but who are we going to push? Are we going to push Grayson Waller or Austin Theory? Austin
Ooh.
Theory, I think he
It's
has a
toss
better
up.
look. He has a better look, but he's nowhere near the talker of a
Oh
Grayson
yeah,
Waller.
the Waller
Yeah,
effect, dude. I'm sorry,
yeah,
dude. That is
yeah.
one of the
So
greatest talk shows on WWE right now, honestly.
I would say we push Austin Theory because Austin is, I think, is a prodigy in this business. He's very young. He's nowhere near 30. I think he's 26, if that.
Yeah, he was the
And
youngest. He was the youngest United States champion. I think he was like 23, 24.
yeah,
He's
so
not that. He's not that old, and neither is Grayson Waller.
yeah,
So
but
I honestly think
yeah,
like either way, I want to see both of them succeed. I think they are honestly the next generation.
yeah,
I see Austin Theory as a very young version of Miz. I kind of see Grayson Waller as just kind of, I don't know who I could draw a comparison to. But like, honestly, they're both kind of Miz's, honestly. They
you
know
know,
how to piss you off. They know how to get you to hate them.
right.
And
They
I
do their
think
job well. Yeah.
and I
I
think that that chalks it up to a lot of the Miz because obviously we know the Miz. He went through one of the craziest upcomings in WWE that you know I don't think anybody, unless you dig into the archives to see how bad he was treated. So I feel like Waller and Theory, I think, are both. I feel like are on that level. I would say Waller's better on the mic. As far
mhm,
as athleticism, obviously, I think Austin Theory has that. I think that's probably why there's such a weird combo. You're
yeah.
they're kind of like Miz and Morrison, right?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
so
yeah, yeah,
I think that's a
yeah.
good
Oh my god,
parallel,
yeah, yeah, you're so
because they
right, yeah.
both have different attributes that
And
suit
we
them
all know
together.
Morrison is such an amazing athlete and
Oh,
performer.
100%.
It's just yeah, I don't know. Yeah, the person who could be cut twice from the company, you would have thought it would have been the Miz, but no, John Morrison.
Right.
I which all right, whatevs. Um, yeah, yeah,
So,
just go ahead and give me like two guys who can really have a good feud
right.
that wouldn't be boring on the mid card, you know.
Right.
And I
Yeah,
think
because I
that
mean,
they could
I
do it.
definitely, yeah, it's not, this isn't top echelon, feuds we need to have, but like a good mid card feud is never a bad thing, which is kind of getting to the next match with Andrade and Carmelo Hayes, which, you know, it's kind of crazy that Andrade basically he was with WWE for at least, I'd say 5 or 6 years, gets released, goes to AEW, and then comes back and I feel like they've missed the shot with him.
you
Like,
know, I
do you think
I would
honestly they've kind of I mean, they put him as a speed champion. I mean, they're not really pushing him for anything currently.
and to be honest with you, everybody in WWE has a role to play. And even when they break out and they get this level of notoriety and recognition, you still have a role to play. Andrade knew what he was getting into when he re-signed. With that being said, I think his utilization is much better under Triple H than it was previously. I think Andrade helping to build younger talent, and by younger I mean someone
I mean,
who's
but like do
younger
you
and not has not been in the business as long.
yeah.
But Carmelo Hayes does have a long history in in professional wrestling. But I digress. I think this is also part of their cookbook when it comes to Carmelo Hayes. They'll break you down a little bit to build you up, so yeah, it's going to be a different path with Carmelo Hayes, just like it's going to be a little bit different with Andrade in the sense of how he's booked and the stories he's in. But I think Andrade does eventually become United States champion. um it's just going to take us a little bit to get there with him because of LA Knight.
Yeah. And I would say so. I mean, I still want Sheamus to finally get his IC title because I'm sorry, but they have ducked and dodged and booked around Sheamus, and I want him to get the damn championship that he hasn't won. He literally spent, a couple years on the other brand where you didn't have access to the IC title, and now he's on the brand that has the IC title, and they just need to give it to him. I don't even care if it's for 3 months. I just want his career to come full circle and get the notoriety that he
Yeah.
much deserves,
Yep.
to
I
be a Grand
I
Slam champion.
You know what?
You have The
I
Miz as
agree,
a two-time Grand Slam champion. You
which
have
is wild.
Seth Rollins as a two-time Grand Slam champion now. And so you have plenty of Grand Slam champions. And it's just like, how is Sheamus not in that?
You know,
It's crazy how much they like. You could have just gave him the title and had him lose it in 3 months. Just let him have it. Let him have his Grand
There
Slam championship. In,
there's
in,
gotta
in
be there's gotta be a payoff, there's gotta be a story around it, or it's not gonna happen. We can sit and talk about his accolades and why he should do it and really advocate for him, but the fact of the matter is, they're not gonna do something unless there's going to be a payoff. With Damian Priest, there was definitely a payoff. He did all that work with Bad Bunny, getting Bad Bunny over. He's done all these like other little things when it comes to like backstage, and just how he's carried himself and how they view him as a champion and as a big star. Um, yeah, I you know, there's gotta be something that happens in order for that ball to get rolling. Like
I mean, but
Braun
they,
Breaker
but
gets hurt or something like that,
I
then I
mean,
think
but like,
it would make
if you
sense.
go back to the Clash at the Castle match, the triple threat with Gunther, Drew McIntyre, and Sheamus, they could have pulled the trigger then. And I think,
Who
and
was
that,
running that show? Who was,
I think at that point, I think Gunther already was the longest reigning, I believe, and so and it's kind of messed up that his reign goes 666 days, but like, I really think I'm absolutely I will speak as much as I can that Sheamus needs his title, but I digress.
Mm,
So let's just kind of cover. So we have the current this is from the good old website. So you have Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns versus the Bloodline. You have Jacob Fatu and Solo Sikoa. You have the Hell in a Cell match, CM Punk, Drew McIntyre. You have the Women's Championship match, Liv Morgan versus Rhea. You have Damian versus Finn. And you have Nia Jax versus someone. So we don't. I feel like I need to be pushing Bayley. I would say Bayley, just because she
yeah,
essentially lost it and she's supposed to get her rematch. And I find it funny
yeah.
that the rematch clause is just a very loose clause, because it seems to be they continually, like, let's say they lose the title and they put them in a triple threat or something and then they win. Like, that's, you might as well just give them the title thing instead of wasting our time. Like, they need to go to the back of the line and you need to let basically new talent and see what comes of it.
You know,
Because I'm sick of repetitive times where someone loses, they put them in a triple threat. It's happened dozens of times, and then the person wins. Wow, go figure. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
you I don't mind. Um, I don't mind rematch clauses. And I don't, but it's the
I mean, but
consistency of a
like,
rematch clause. Like if that is what's going to be used in the future, you definitely need to like make that part of the show. Like make that part of the story. It's like, it's like, man, I'm glad I got my rematch clause. You know what I'm saying?
but
It's like,
the
oh, I'm
thing
gonna see
is,
you
but like,
again.
but the
There's
problem,
ways to foreshadow that.
yeah, but like, my big thing is that you have to beat them. Like, they've had these, for decades. They'll get a chance to beat them, not for a title, to get a title shot and then lose. I feel like if you're gonna put it up like that, then just have the champion win. And like, I mean, like, they need to earn a title match, but you shouldn't have to beat the person that has it once to get a title shot and then lose it. Like, and I think we're getting away from that. And I think,
Mhm.
again, that's just Triple H era. We're not doing any more. You beat him once and then you get the challenge for him. Like, none
Right.
of that nonsense. Or I guess technically they have done that, because it's not as prevalent as it used to be. But like the Sammy and Jey Uso getting the tag title match against Tama Tonga and Tongaloa, that still hasn't done it. They haven't done anything with that. They haven't had any storylines about it. Adam Pearce hasn't been talking about it. And how have they fumbled this? Because every time someone beats the title holders or holder, they get a shot. It's been over a month since that win happened. Over a month.
You know, I would not be surprised that it either shows back up in the future, and that was just foreshadowing when it happened. That was just a whole layer to foreshadow, getting the titles off of them, or they've pivoted and they've moved on and it won't ever happen. So it's one of the two things.
And the thing is that, like, but the fact that we know about it and it hasn't happened, like, that's
I'm,
supposed to be WWE's mantra of,
you know,
having that play out, and they didn't do it.
there's probably been thousands of instances of them setting something up for a payoff and it doesn't happen. They've, for
Well,
whatever reason,
or
reason.
or this is if Jay loses, and then they get it,
Right.
and it's gonna be on freaking Raw. Maybe we'll main event it.
Hmm.
Maybe that's something that happens the week after. Maybe all of a sudden, Adam Pearce is like, well, I know you lost this match, but you guys do have an opportunity to, because you've beat them before. And maybe
Right.
that's just them putting it in their pocket, and when they're going to pull it out whenever they want to use it. But
Yeah.
like, I just think that there's been such a time frame in which they rush those matches to the fact that they haven't really done it with this one. And obviously there's a million storylines going on. So like,
Right.
you got the Sammy Gunther, you got Jay versus Braun. So like, I mean, I get it. I guess it's not the right time, but
Hmm.
maybe if Jay loses, that's what they have left to hang on,
Yeah.
because Sammy and Jay have always been friends, and
Yeah.
and the whole handshake thing that they do, and it's amazing. And so maybe this is like, maybe Sammy consoles Jay of his loss, and he's like, hey, but we have this. Are you down?
Yeah, because they both lost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so maybe
All right.
that,
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like that seems probable then. I mean, if we're doing, because that's essentially a month out, essentially, because we're 3 weeks out from Bad Blood. So, maybe that's the story. Maybe that's what we get. Maybe the fact that we talk about it,
Hmm.
we start spinning the wheels and kind of,
Getting it.
based
Yep.
on the decades of watching the product, we kind of synopsize or predict, or have a pretty good odds of who's
Yeah.
how things are going to go.
Hmm.
So maybe that's what we get. Maybe
Maybe.
that's the long-term story booking, right?
Yep. That's
And I
what they're
think that's
moving
never
towards.
that's never going to change.
Yeah.
Long-term story booking is literally like, it's when you watch it for as long as you do, and then all of a sudden, like, like Nikki Cross, right? Like, she
Hmm.
been going gaga eyes for the sky for freaking 5 months before the whole Wyatt Six thing even was a thought.
Yeah.
So like, and maybe, and honestly, the Wyatt Six, I think honestly, there could not be any better guys to play those characters.
Yeah. I mean,
One, because obviously Eric Rowan is an OG Wyatt member.
right.
He's the only person on it that's part of the original, we'll call
Yeah.
it. And
Oh,
so in Joe Gacy is just a twisted SOB, and that just fits. Dexter Loomis doesn't even talk, and he's just that silent assassin, and then you toss, you know, Bo Dallas in there, and like, I like that they're referring to the characters that they play as that they are harnessing the energy of Ramblin' Rabbit or Huskus the Pig, and so
Yeah.
like,
It's
I
a good
like
way to
that
explain
they're
it.
still going by their names,
Right.
but they're like, as part of the Wyatt Six mantra, they're being influenced by what they are. So they're not calling him Huskus the Pig. They're not calling him Mercy the Buzzard. Like, it's just kind of, it's the energy, I guess. And I kind of like that they still kind of call them by their names. I think that's cool. So,
Yeah. I do too.
oh man.
Yeah. Well.
So, I mean, we'll see what happens tomorrow. I mean, I really feel like we're gonna get more information. We're going to get more, see what happens. I mean, there's honestly like the whole Wyatt Six thing. I don't think they'll be there. I don't think that they're kind of playing this like in and out moment. You know, I just don't want to see Alpha Academy versus American Made ever again. It's it's a it's
Yeah,
it's a
I think
feud.
yeah,
It's a feud that just kind of eh.
yeah.
Like I love Tozawa. I love his energy. Just you're not. No, ain't happening, man. You
Yeah.
I'm sorry, the Creed brothers are freaking beasts, okay?
You know,
Like
but we
the
all
one dude's like 6 foot something, the other dude's like 290 pounds of freaking pure muscle. Like I really think that American Made needs to start running Raw.
mm,
I think it would be a change of pace
I don't see them
because
as they outside of the ring, I don't see them as a threat. With Judgment Day, you can,
well, I
just
mean
like with
because they've
Bloodline.
well, but I'm not saying like now. I mean, I'm just
Right.
saying like, future story booking here in like the next 6 months because like you do have this like they kind of have an aura of like the original Judgment Day, right? Kind of that suit and tie, kind of really just kind of quiet until it's time to be bad.
Mhm.
And I think that maybe the Creed brothers come out in like black suits or something now, and maybe they kind of start
Mm.
harnessing a little bit of more bravado, a little bit more fear put in. Like, hey, when their feud is done with the Wyatt Six, you know,
Hmm.
maybe they move on to being a little bit more dark.
Yeah.
But fantasy booking. So, but we'll put a pin in this as we always do. Hopefully Tim and his life, comes back around. So we miss you, buddy. So, we will hopefully see you next week. This is the Lockdown Podcast. Peace.